Hi there, my name is Ewan Nicholson. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Remembering Love. The subject of today's video is the healing and restorative power of silence and stillness, in particular on the healing journey of resolving childhood trauma. And what I'd like to share in this video is why experiencing internal silence and internal stillness is restorative, is powerful, and is something that for me at least, has been a really integral part of my own healing journey. And the second part of the video, I'd like to share with you just some basic kind of tips on my experiences to kind of how to deepen that, or how to get to a point where you can feel some silence inside yourself and to feel the restorative and curative power of silence and stillness. So the subject of silence and stillness and peacefulness or inner quiet or whatever you want to call it has been a topic of focus and interest across all religions for centuries. From the Eastern religions, from Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, to the Western traditions of Sufism, mystical Christianity, Judaism, and the Kabbala. In Judaism, there is a lot of text on the value, the experience, and necessity to experience silence. And you must look and think, well, there must be something in that. Across all cultures, across all religious traditions, there is a focus on the discipline of experiencing silence and the necessity of experiencing silence. And I think that has relevance and application in our modern world. And to be honest, I think even more so, because if the opposite of silence is busyness and noisiness and kind of activity, then we are in a world now that is just full of busyness, full of activity. So to be able to capture or to be able to withdraw from that and experience silence, I think has even more importance than it did, let's say, 500 years ago. So what is it? Like, what are we talking about, and why is it important? Now, all I can tell you from my own direct experience is the reason experiencing interior silence is so healing is, and I've done another video on this, on the paradox of healing childhood trauma, is that if you've come from a background of trauma, often your own internal experiences is just, often a wellspring of anxiety and shame and fear and conflict and tension. And the process of healing is all about how do you resolve that, how do you deal with that, how do you reconcile that. But our own internal experience, our own interior sense of self is often fraught with a lot of painful things. And we spend a lot of our adult lives kind of denying that, suppressing that, avoiding that, covering that up, acting out on that. And we go through this whole process of coming to grips with what is inside of us. So the experience of our interior life is often an experience that's quite conflicted and full of tension, that we're taught to and develop mechanisms to kind of avoid and suppress that. So to get to a point in your healing journey where you can sit still for a period of time, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour, however long it is, and rest back inside yourself, and in that resting process, or that meditative process or contemplative process or process of prayer or meditation, whatever term you want to give it, during that period, not necessarily for the whole time, but you have moments of serenity, or you have moments where you feel a pleasure arise from feeling quiet, a feeling like everything's kind of still and everything's settled inside myself, and my kind of thoughts are there a little bit, they're kind of buzzing around, but there's this anchoredness in a sense of peacefulness inside of me. And that peacefulness isn't coming from something external to me that's placating me or distracting me or enabling me to avoid all this kind of tension and anxiety. It's actually arising internally. It's arising from me. And that is kind of against a lot of the momentum that I've had in my life of just all I am is this giant wellspring of fear and anxiety, and to suddenly experience my interior state as the opposite of that. Of, there's some quietness there. I feel relaxed. I feel like safe. I feel settled. Actually, I even feel to a point where I like sitting here. I like this feeling of interior quiet. I could sit here for a long time. And it's nice. And what happens is the nature of that experience because it's not a doing experience, it's more of like a being experience or being here experience. And it's kind of counterintuitive or paradoxical, because on one level, you know, to sit to meditate or sit to contemplate, you are doing something, but the doing that you're doing is kind of like getting into a state of non-doing, of where I'm just here kind of doing nothing. And to begin with, it's difficult because there's all this momentum in us that's like, what am I doing? I should be breathing. And we can even take that doing feeling of hurriedness into our sitting practice, but eventually it slows down. Eventually it kind of settles a little bit. And there's a sense of, I'm not doing anything. I'm just being here with my breath, with these thoughts, or with whatever's going on. And there is just a peacefulness that comes from that I don't have to do anything. Because one of the things I've struggled with all my life is this feeling of something's undone, and you know, I got to fix myself, and I'm broken, and I got to do this here, and there's this kind of anxiety and fretful feeling that I'm always doing something. And I've even brought that into my meditation, and to feel like I don't have to do anything, that it's all good, that there's something inside of me that's just quiet, and I can be present with that. It's very healing, because it's restorative and healing, not as a result of doing X and Y. It's restorative and healing because I'm not doing X and Y. Quite the opposite, I'm just kind of doing nothing. And in that nothing, it's full of this beautiful something. In that emptiness arises a fullness that is just very serene and very at ease with itself. That it has no agenda, it's not aiming at anything, there's no objective, it's just here. So for me to experience that has been something that I feel like it's a different wellspring. So I'm not just a wellspring of anxiety, but there is a source in me of serenity and peacefulness that kind of almost underneath all the anxiety, there's something beneath that given the right amount of time and given the right amount of space, it eventually arises. So for me, the restorative and healing power of silence and stillness is just the fact that I can experience it, the fact that I can feel myself as a source of serenity, just in of itself is restorative and healing. But then what happens is it feels like that healing wellspring, or that silent wellspring, kind of just does something as well. It takes an effect. It starts to kind of seep into other aspects of myself that seem to calm me down. It seems to slow my nervous system, slows my heart rate. My body starts to respond to that silence and stillness, and as it gets still, and as it gets still, my mind gets more still. So in addition just to the reality of that non-doing state and that source of serenity, it feels like it has its own kind of magic in a strange way, its own kind of just curative ability, that you just kind of let it do its thing, and it just starts sort of imprinting itself, or it just starts trickling down in a way that it's very hard to explain. It just feels very healing. And what do I have to do to make that healing happen? Nothing. That's the whole point. It just seems to kind of do itself. So for me, it's been a real gift, and if you want to know what silence looks like, or what a quiet mind looks like, just look at a dog panting in the sun, look at a cat resting in a windowsill, look at a 3-year-old just staring out quietly from a pram. It's all around us. Look at a tree swaying in the breeze. It's just everywhere. It's us that are in tension. We're the ones conflicted. All of nature is in this silent, serene movement and passage. So the first thing is we're surrounded by it. It's not this abstract thing that we have to kind of dig deep. We're swimming in it. We just aren't aware enough on one level, or quiet enough to kind of feel it and let it in. So we don't have to require silence or get it. It's actually the ground of everything. It's just there. All that's required is a certain kind of diligence and time and commitment on one level to taking time for allow it to rise up. And it eventually does. And it's taken me a long time. It's been no sort of straightforward thing, but I really am glad that I have taken the time to do that. and little by little that kind of compounds. Now, some of the things that I have done to deepen that experience, or have that experience, I've talked about before on this channel, and they're just things you'd expect. They're pretty straightforward. One is, I've developed a daily meditation practice. And it started off pretty slow, just 5-10 minutes. I've built that up. I've mainly worked from a kind of a Buddhist system or a Gnostic system, and I've committed to that more than I have other years. And it does kind of, it is a compounding thing, I think, as well, that if you do it daily and you really take time apart to kind of say, look, I'm going to create this space. Most of my practice I do before everyone gets up, before all the noise starts coming in our apartment, and I'm here in my study. I have a little altar, and I create a little bit of space just to be with whatever's going on inside myself, and just to be present with myself. So that's a very basic thing, is to develop a mindfulness or meditation or prayer practice. The second thing that I think has helped contribute to that is learning the difference between disassociation and self-observation. So when I'm feeling anxious, what's me disassociating from that anxiety and just kind of switching off, and then what's me just being conscious of I'm feeling anxious and I'm aware of that and observing my anxiety. So the difference between detachment and disassociation, which is kind of complicated, but I think that's helped as well, because I get less involved and identified with some of these anxious patterns. And I've done a video on that. I'll put it in the description on self-observation. I think a basic one that I think everyone intuitively gets pulled to is the silence of nature and the silence of the animal kingdom. And I don't mean silence as in it's just, it is nice at times just to go out before the sunrise where everything's quiet, but just the tensionless of nature, just the nature of nature itself, that it is unconflicted. It is peaceful in its unconflictedness. And the more you're around that, the more you acknowledge that and feel it and get a sense of it, then I feel that helps contribute to my own interior silence. And then some of the things that are probably less about what I do and more about what I try to avoid is I'm just aware that this is a very noisy culture we live in, a very noisy world. There are times where we're either work's going on in this apartment, someone's having the apartment renovated, 2 apartments are being renovated, it's really noisy, there's a leaf blower going, kids maybe are fighting in the bathroom, and trying to create an interior space of silence in that. I'm not by any means at that level, but also aware we're in a very distracted society, so my phone is always pulling me towards it, there's always something going on, there's always this kind of hurriedness and activity, and it can occupy your attention and steal your attention and take your attention. So I have to be quite vigilant in shutting off distractions and distancing myself from things that aggravate my mind and do not contribute to my serenity, from whether that's TV, certain TV programs I won't watch, certain activities I just won't get involved with, arguments I try not to get sucked into, things that just do not contribute to quietness, that are aggravating and that get me in my head. And I certainly haven't got to a level where I'm devoid of that, because old habits die hard, but I'm also aware of, does this contribute to more serenity or does this contribute to less? And I think trying to work out things according to that can be helpful as well, because to feel interior silence is a little bit of an act of rebellion, because it goes against the momentum of everything else, which is just hurriedness, busyness, get there, do that, go there. And if you're not doing something, you're thinking about what you should be doing or what you should have done. And to kind of just step back from that and just say no, no. Like I need this. I need this curative power. I need to be aligned with the beauty of presence and the grace of silence. I need it for my soul, for my being, for my health. And I not demand it, but I require it. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity for my sanity, for my emotional safety. So I have to protect my quietness. I have to nurture my quietness. I have to cultivate my quietness, because if I don't do this in a deliberate way, the force of my culture and my time and my life will just carry me in a way where there's like no time for it. I just got to fit it in. But to make it a priority, to make this matters, this is of value, I think is required, because otherwise the momentum will just put it down your list and you kind of never get around to it. And for me, it's a priority. It's the first thing I do when I wake up from a meditation practice. I try to come back to it as much as I can during the day, because one, it works, and two, it's aligning myself with what's real, because these problems, this anxiety, this hurriedness to get somewhere that never arrives, it's illusory. It's an empty promise. It's just not real, and I don't want to realize that when I'm 80 on my deathbed. I want to get real now, and feel the power of that. So look, I hope this has helped. I hope this has made sense. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you've got any comments or insights or anything you'd like to share with, please put them in the comments below. I'll link some of the videos I mentioned in this in terms of the difference in disassociation, self-observation, how to reduce some background anxiety to help get you started in your practice. And please look after yourself, take care, and I hope you can feel some silence very soon. Take care, bye-bye.